quickly. We have two incredible speakers tonight, and I am very sure you just want to hear what they have to say. You want to hear the truth. You want to hear them break you out of those things that have been holding you back since God knows when. And so I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Ibinabo Otonjo. So Ibinabo Otonjo Pamela is a seasoned marketing and communication strategist with almost a decade of cross-industry experience spanning finance, media, and strategic consultancy. She is currently the director of Smile Blunt, a soulful storytelling and brand development agency that is rooted in cultural resonance, faith, and future-ready strategies. With a strong foundation in high-level brand communication and business growth strategy, Trevor is one that marketing into a core business driver, marketing innovation that Norbenga Financial lead major rebranding projects, drive digital acquisition, and advise C-suite executives on high-stake reputation visibility strategy. She successfully repositioned Norbenga Pensions Limited and has driven integrated marketing for its multi-subsidiary ecosystem, including pensions, asset management, microfinance, and insurance. Ibinabo's easier work includes a prolific tenure at Red TV or UBA, where she contributed to iconic projects like the Men's Club and Unintentional, combining creativity and commerce through award-winning content. Telling, corporate communication, and culture sets her apart as a generational voice in brand marketing. Rooted deeply in her faith and passion for nation building, she founded Ismail Blunt, a creative collective that channels prophetic insights into branding solutions for businesses, thought leaders, and movements. Inspired by Isaiah 60 verse 3 and Proverbs 22 verse 29, Ibn Abba believes that creating brands that arise and shine lead with light in a noisy world. She holds a BSc in sociology. She is certified in strategic communication and digital marketing and is proficient in French and indigenous languages. Her interests spans content mentorship, fashion branding, culinary storytelling, and youth education advocacy. Today, whether behind a corporate desk or in a creative trenches or in the creative trenches, Ibinama builds brand with clarity, conviction, and cultural depth, empowering people, platforms, and purpose-driven enterprise to thrive. So with joy in our hearts, with the joy and eagerness to learn, let us welcome Ibinaba Pamela Utunjo.
And good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching from in the world. Do you know when Angela was reading all those things, I was just like, wow, is this really me? Okay, guys. So today I'm going to be taking us on something I'm very passionate about. Two things I'm passionate about. One, the creative sector, and second of all, disruption, because I think that the world has reached the point where people need to move from just creating content to creating movements that shape the entirety of our world. So I'm going to start with my slides. You already heard my name. My topic today is creative disruption, reimagining content, culture, and communication. So I have a little bit of a, will I say, like slide with all the things we're going to be talking about. This is really a conversation. So please, if you're listening, wherever you're listening from in the world, drop your comments, drop your notes, drop your questions. We'll answer as much as we can. And if you're not subscribed to Ambience TV, you guys please subscribe. So a little joining disruption. Before we begin, I'm going to do like a little bit of an icebreaker. We're going to have like a brief history around creative powerhouses. We're going to talk about the content pillars of modern creative movements. We're going to question these movements, then pop culture versus influence. Then we're going to go into the real meat of the day, which is faith based creatives breaking the mold, and then community over clicks. And then I'm going to round up, sort of like encouraging us around what we should do and what the future holds for us. So, before we begin, let's go into a little background. So, I saw this video, and this video was posted 19 hours ago from Rihanna's page. I don't know if we can play the video. It's a quick video. We don't even have to watch it to the end, but I just want to tantalize us a little bit. Okay, guys. So I was going to play a video, but don't worry. Let me just give you a little bit of a background. So Rihanna is celebrating 20 years in the industry, and there is this thought-provoking video on her page. If you don't follow her, it's fine. You can just go access it and watch. But let's start with a little icebreaker. If you are on the platform and you are watching, I have a little poll, right? I want us to start from the very beginning. When you hear the word disruption in culture, what comes to your mind first? So I have a few options. If you can comment, I'm just going to give you like 1 minute to go through the options and then we'll get into the conversation. So Beyonce and Rihanna obviously on the list. Afrobeats is on the list. TikTok creators and influencers are on the list. And then there's faith creatives, which covers aspects like worship movements, Christian influencers, etc. So I mean, if you're looking at this thing, you're instinctively either going to go to a name, which is Beyonce, Rihanna, which is obviously a very powerful name. If you picked Afrobeats, I'm going to say that this is just evident to the fact that musicians are moving borders. If you pick TikTok creators, then you're leaning more to the side of raw disruption, right? TikTok has sort of like leveled the playing field, no matter your background, no matter where in the world you are, bust into a dance move and build a following. And then last but not least, if Faith Creatives is the way you're going, then you and I are definitely aligning because this is a form of, well, let's say this is a movement of creatives that I've recently become very, very passionate about. So I'll give us a few clues. Things like Hallelujah Challenge, Morning Prayers by maybe Jerry Eze, and the likes. These are sort of movements, right? Okay. So I have a quote. Creativity is not just about expression, it's about stewardship. Whether in music, film, design, or faith, visionaries are custodians of influence, and the most disruptive creatives of our time are those who dare to stay clean, authentic, and aligned with it with truth in a generation addicted to noise. So let's go back in time and sort of talk about like what creativity was and where it started from, right? If you think about where we are all coming from as Africans, as indigenous individuals from everywhere around the world, before technology, storytelling, which is everyone's favorite word now, was really about word of mouth. Our great great grandparents would tell us who we were. You know, if they weren't telling the stories with their mouth, then they were drawing things on the wall. They left clues, right? And it's very important to understand that throughout the time of history, culture shapers have existed. Every generation has had creative pillars, and these people have shaped values, they've shaped stories, and of course, they've shaped culture. So, from writers to musicians, artists, and filmmakers, it wasn't just about entertainment, right? They were documenting cultures, they were building systems, and above all, they were passing down vision. So, in terms of faith, what will we say was the place of faith in creativity, and why is this conversation very important? If you think back to stained glasses, hymns, historic notes, faith has always been part of content creation. I'm sure you guys don't even realize it, but Jesus was a content creator, I dare say. So, in terms of storytelling, who are some of the great people we've had? I'm going to keep things very African and indigenous tonight because I feel like this continent is full of untapped resources. And we always say that, right? But the resources is not just resources in the ground or in the sky or wherever, it's within us, it's the people, it's what we have to give the world. So, in terms of writing and storytelling, we have people like Wole Soyinka, the Chinua Achebes, of course, the Adiches now, who have now compounded and turned it into like TED style storytelling. For sound, of course, where would we be talking about sound if we don't mention Fela Kuti, right? Where I'm from in the Niger Delta, Rex Lawson, who has a whole song, by the way, about my name, but story for another day. Then visual arts and design, we have people like Onabrakbeya, T.Y. Bello, and then now, where we are in the world with digital storytelling, you have the Salem Kings, you have the Eriguguas, you have Kiki, you have everyone else. So, what are we now saying in essence? What are the content pillars of modern movement? Creativity without structure will always fail, right? Movements are built when, in my opinion, creatives master multiple pillars and they find ways to streamline these pillars. Today, short form content and long form content can exist side by side. So you can go from watching and learning about the entire history of a culture in a 2 minute TikTok video to going to read an entire thesis about that same culture in a 386-page article. So, what are some of the forms of modern movements we need to key into? There's obviously story, there's sound, there's visual, and one of the ones I love so much, community and platforms. These tools generally multiply when they are aligned with vision. So I'm going to give some examples because I mean, it's always nice to give examples when we're having conversations. In terms of storytelling, Trevor Noah is one of my favorites. He has found a way to combine comedy, right, with real life story. And he's getting into spaces and he's talking about things that have affected his kind of African for the longest time, apartheid. So you see that in his storytelling, there's also social justice. Then for sound, I would use someone who we all know. We generally all don't maybe listen to her music, but a lot of people cannot deny the fact that Beyonce is a powerhouse. She's gone from creating music movements to, turning her name to a household iconic thing. Then for visuals, an interesting example I thought of during the course of this conversation was the Nigerian alter movement. So I remember a couple of years ago stepping into a building somewhere in Lagos. Maybe this was about 8, 9 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago. And I saw this guy wearing super flare pants. I mean, it reminded me of the 70s. He had a bandana on his hair. He was wearing almost like a crop vest, and his nails were painted. Right. And I do consider myself as someone with some level of exposure, but I was shocked. I was like, this is very interesting. And this was in downtown Lagos. This was in Surulere. This was not the island. So it wasn't about foreign influences at that time. But that one person I saw slowly became two and then 200. And then it became a crop of individuals doing music, a crop of individuals doing art. Slowly and surely, the Alter movement took over. And whether you like them or not, whether you think they're Gen Z or not, they are here to stay. And last but not least, communities and platforms. So I mentioned Beyonce, right? And we all know that a lot of big communities have sort of like become a hub of fans and sometimes even fanatics. So you have the beehives, you have BTS Army. For people who like Taylor Swift, they call themselves the Swifties. We have, which is the disruption we're talking about. But I want to ask us a question. When you think of yourself as a creative, do you think, am I creating content or am I building a movement, right? And this is why it's really important for you to think of yourself as someone who is um slowly getting into the disruption space. Disruption does not mean chaos, right? It means breaking old limits to reveal new possibilities. Every single person I've talked about was someone who sat behind a mic or sat behind paper and pen or sat behind a screen and decided, I'm tired of how things are being done and I want to do something completely differently so that when history remembers me, I'm not just another number. You're not just another person who trended for one day. You're not just another artist who released music, but you're someone who evolved and broke the norm. Rihanna is not the only artist who dropped music in her time. Beyonce is definitely not the only artist, first of all, who was even in Destiny's Child. But what is it these people did differently, right? And these are some of the discourses we're going to be talking about today. So I like to think of something. Creativity is trust, right? God gives us ideas as seeds and we are accountable for how we use them. We're accountable for how we spread them and we're accountable for how eventually become something that is grown because just like legacy, your creativity must outlive you. So, we're going to move to the next point, which is the shift. So, before we go into the shift, I just want to give us some random statistics so that we understand that the creative sector, right, is not something to be played about. Between 2022 and 2023, in Nigeria and Ghana alone, there was a contribution of over, in Nigeria, I think about $1.4 billion. And in Ghana in 2023, the GDP, entertainment's contribution to the GDP was about $3.4 million. Now, moving to where we are today in 2025, we are having projections, right, that in another 5, 6 years, the stats is that creative economy will be contributing to almost 10%, 15% of the GDP. But how are we going to do that? How are we going to get into that shift if we're not doing certain things around key facts and cultural preservation? Take, for example, our Afrobeats. Afrobeats is not just music anymore. Guys, if I think of Afrobeats, I think it's a global force. You know the way they say people have nuclear weapons? Global. Afrobeats Afrobeats is our own global nuclear weapon. It's projected to hit about $451 million in 2025. And when I saw the statistics, that's 5 times where they started recording these stats in 2017. So between Burna Boy, the Wizkids, the Thames, the Jumas, every single African creative creating content and going into brand partnerships, these are the type of things they will be doing. Nollywood, my personal fave. Cinematic powerhouse. They are churning over. I mean, they are doing like 10,000 movies per month, this, that, etc. But globally, our output is less than 1%. So, how do we disrupt in that space? How do we change that narrative? The next question I would like to ask is, do you think that this is a season of a big move or not? Every single year we sit down in summits, we sit down in all kind of creative conversations just like the one we are doing now, and we talk and we talk and we talk. But my own thing is that it's time for us to move. And why do I keep giving us this stat? This is Ambience TV, right? And what I'm most passionate about is how the faith-based systems can begin to own the narrative. Secular culture has branded fan bases into movements that influence politics, philanthropy, and global identity. People are walking around making decisions just because their favorite artist did these things. So my own question is, how does the church rather have the most powerful message, but yet we've not been able to brand our movement into a global thing? And this is where I'd like to ask you the question, if you're listening. Are you called to just minister, or are you called to structure a movement? And this is because over spirituality ignores structure, right? There's there's this thing where, as Christians and as believers, we sort of like over spiritualize things and forget to put the things that matter in place. You saw the stats I gave you around the numbers. That's where we should be playing. Second of all, if there's also under spirituality, you lose your essence, right? So what is the message you want the world to see? What is it you want people to remember you for as a disruptive creative? I'm sorry, if you are just following trends, then are you really disrupting? That's a question you should ask yourself. So I'll give you examples of sort of movements and things that have disrupted the creative space and disrupted the world. So there was obviously NSAS, there was Black Lives Matters, Jesus and the Apostles, guys. And then there was Hallelujah Challenge. It started from his living room and it's grown to a global phenomenon. So global that media houses are calling Pastor Nathaniel, asking questions. They want to understand, what is this thing that you're doing and how are you using prayer to create cultural shift? Which now brings me to my next point of pop culture versus true influence. So, a few key points I'd like to share. Pop culture thrives on virality, controversy, and quick impact. Sometimes a combination of all three, sometimes one or the other. However, true influence is long term, it's structured, and it's transformative. Also, disruption must be anchored in truth and systems. Just because something is having a viral moment doesn't necessarily mean it is disruptive. However, some viral moments have given birth to disruptive systems, right? Don't forget, guys, the key here is to make sure that what you are disrupting with and disrupting for is long term. You're not just looking for quick wins. You're not just looking to come online, create one video, people listen to you, they are, and then that's it. You want something that's going to outlive you. So examples of, again, people who are swinging between the pop culture and influence: there's Beyonce, who's creating longevity through cultural coding. There's Nathaniel Bassey, who has sustained global influence. And Paul's letters, believe it or not, it's been 2000 years, but if you read the Bible, you still go back there to get information. So my question now to you is, will your creativity be noise for a moment or influence for a generation? Big question, guys. So we've talked about the shift being, first, the big move or not. We've talked about the versus, and then I'm now going to go into what is really important for us as believers. And I've kind of tagged this Jesus swag. And the overall thing is, how can faith-based creatives break the mold? So clean, spirit-led creativity is possible and it is powerful. Faith creatives are redefining influence across mediums, and it doesn't matter whether you're sitting in your local vicinity somewhere in the middle of nowhere doing a video. It doesn't matter whether you are promoting modest fashion. It doesn't matter whether you're creating art. But the truth is that you must stay authentic to yourself. There must be something that when people look at, they remember that this person, I may have watched their video once, I may have encountered their content once, but it's stuck with me. So a lot of people in this generation are slowly becoming creatives who are disrupting based off of faith. You have Guys Baba. Of course, everybody knows Guys Baba. If you don't know Guys Baba, I don't know what you're doing. You're sleeping on something good. There's Theophilus Sunday. One of my all-time favorites is American gospel rapper slash podcaster Lecrae. T.Y. Bello, who is a phenomenal photographer, but every once in like a decade, she'll just hit us with like a mad album or some great music, and you just remember why you love her. And another creative who's been on my map And I find him disruptive because he's doing something very interesting. He's finding ways to fuse rap with teachings from the Bible, or teachings about just being a wholesome person, and that would be King James. So these are things that we can look around. And then why is this important, right? As creatives, we have to find a way to ensure that structural change is non-negotiable. So whether you are a disruptive creative who's just coming up, or just a regular creative who's finding their feet, there are some things that I think require you to be considerate of. So you have to think of things around structure. You have to consider IP protection. You have to think of your distribution pipelines, like where are you putting your content? How are you putting your content out? And then education and mentorship. And why do I say this? So I like to use myself as an example. I always call myself a creative and say, oh, I'm a creative who found herself in the finance space and all of that. But the truth is, you can be a creative anywhere. The thing is, how do you get better as a creative? If you have a gift and you do not develop it, my G's, it's just going to be a gift. It's just going to be there. Find platforms, find people you can shadow mentor. What do I mean? Sometimes mentorships require you to be in close range, but sometimes you just find someone who is a fave and you sort of follow what they do. You find the rhythm that they found. But remember, to be disruptive, you have to be distinctive. Copying your fave is not the disruption, it's finding your own niche and then making it even better. So, I'd like to say this to you. If we look at people like Apostle Femi Lazarus, the Lawrence Oyos, the Victoria Renzes, all of them are proving that faith based creativity, first of all, has no box. Guys, the box is a myth. That's where the disruption starts. It is a myth. That box will only put you in a small space. Remove the box. They're showing us that intimacy, sound, art, poetry, and digital leadership can be disruptive without being dirty. And why am I re echoing the need for clean entertainment? Disruption is not virality in dirty content, guys. And this is not an ode to the people who are removing their clothes and doing things like that online. That's a whole conversation for another day. But you see, the real disruption comes when you find your voice and then you amplify it. So, if disruptive faith movements are possible and already happening, my own question to you is, what's your excuse for staying safe, silent, or small? So the next line. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Please, while I'm here talking, please drop your questions, drop your comments. I'd be happy to answer them immediately we're done going through all of this. So obviously we've talked about where creativity sort of started from. We've talked about the shift that needs to happen. And then now I'm moving to people and progress, right? So how do we move forward? Which means I'm about to round up. I'd like to think of this as hashtag the tribe. The importance of community cannot be overemphasized. Followers does not equate to having or bearing fruit, guys. Community is measured by depth of transformation, not likes or views. You could post a picture and you could get 7 million views, 7 million likes. But at the end of the day, if you're a conscious creative, which is something all disruptive creatives own, they have a sense of consciousness, they have a sense of community. When they create, they don't create for themselves, they create for the generation watching and those coming. What is it that you're putting out there that people are going to look at in 10 years and think, oh my goodness, that's inspiring? The early church was the strongest creative community. And I say this because they had scripture, they had songs, they had theater, they had storytelling in its purest form. Communities only scale when they share identity, when they share language, and they share wisdom. So, what do I mean? I don't think there's any real community that you all don't sort of like share the same views, right? The only thing that would make you feel like you're a part of a community is because there's a sense of belonging. And as a disruptive creative, that should always be front and center when you create. You want people who find you to have an essence with you. You're not creating for everybody. And that is something that you must never forget. Find your niche, stay on your lane. that your lane, be committed to it. Those who love you will definitely find you. So, what kind of examples? Again, I just mentioned the church, great big community. One of my all-time favorites and one I belong to, Saintsiders, which is by Eric Gugwa. He's a fantastic creative. He's shaking all the tables, right? But he has us thinking. And for once, again, using your brain actually means something. Ask yourself, what tribe am I building and what will your tribe be known for? So as I round up, I'd like to say something, right? The seed that we all bear, you must water that seed for gain and growth. And I think for me, I would say that growth areas for visionary creatives include things like, one, you have to master your narrative, which is something I just said earlier. Find your niche, understand it, stay in that lane. I once heard someone say that if you wake up every morning and you try to close a bottle of water and you give yourself something to do and say, I'll close it in 10 seconds, and you practice every day, right? It's also the concept of 100,000 hours, etc. By the time you've done it for so long, you can do it in your sleep, right? People begin to call you master of that sector. Second of all, spiritual anchoring. Find your zen, find your why. Why do you do what you do? What is the essence? What is that one thing that you anchor your entire creativity on? Whether you're asleep, you're awake, someone wakes you up and they say, where'd you get your inspiration from? You know where to go. Thirdly, I would say be very strategic about your distribution, which is so important. There are so many channels in the world today, but you know the truth, every channel is not for everyone. Maybe your audience is on LinkedIn, stay there. Maybe the community you most reach out to is on Pinterest. Stay there. Maybe X, as toxic as we all say X is, that's where they are hearing you. Please stay there. And if Instagram is your thing as well, stay there. Learn to understand your distribution and stay within that time, within that frame. Excellence. I cannot overemphasize this because, especially in the bodies of works that a lot of people are putting out there now, people just want to do what they think is nice. Nice is not enough. Nice will get you through the door, but excellence will keep you on people's minds. I have seen videos that are just one camera, someone facing the camera, they open their mouth and start to speak, and I'm like, wow. Do you understand? And I've seen videos that I know that they use 16 lights. They had all the sound guys, and you're just wondering, what happened here? So it's not about being nice. It's not about putting on too much. It's about understanding what works and keeping it excellent. Make sure your sound is top notch if you're doing sound stuff. If you're a writer, edit, re-edit, keep editing, go through other people's eyes, use other eyes, ask questions. If you are an artist, do what you have to do. Be inspired by other artists, yes, but find your middle ground and know when you're doing too much and when you haven't done enough. And last of all, in terms of growth, I would say collaboration. I think that people forget that history will not forget people who did something and did it evidently well, as opposed to just scattered efforts all around, right? A lot of people that have succeeded today have succeeded because obviously there were pioneers going before them, but some of them came behind those pioneers and even collaborated with those pioneers. So if I know X and you know more, when we come together, we are a force. This is all behind influencer marketing, brand sponsorship, brand partnerships. I mean, if brands like Nike that are so big are still looking for ways to disrupt the market by collaborating with the Serenas and all these athletes, how much more us content creatives? So an example, right? Apostle Selman, he sort of developed this with systems. People like Apostle Selman, Apostle Iren, Apostle Femi, and then you have people like Theophilus Sunday, Michael Orokpo, who are also doing things with tribes of believers. Someone else who I really like is Jay Shetty. He kind of understood how to hack his system. So he was a storyteller, then he moved to, all the podcasting, and then he scaled up by doing a lot of strategic content repurposing. And that has really put him on the map. He's telling us the things that sometimes we have as innermost thoughts, right? But he's stretching it all the way. And then in Nigeria, I would say someone like Thames has sort of like mastered these growth areas. She was building and building and building. She started off, she stayed true to her sound, you guys. I mean, I can't imagine that there would ever have been a time in Nigeria where we would like Thames kind of music, coming from a background where Nigerians liked a lot of loud, noisy music. But Thames came with the vibe. She came with a different wave, almost bordering on the alter movement I initially talked about, and she disrupted her own way. She didn't look back, right? So the question is, which of these five growth areas, right, are you weakest in, and how are you looking to strengthen yourself and grow? I would now like to say that for those who consider themselves clean Christian creatives, right, there are it's a combination of spirit and systems that will build that sustainable kingdom impact. I would like to say, don't just post, create an unfolding story across platforms, right? Don't just put something out there because it's time, let me just put something out there. Yes, I know a lot of you are watching 30-day challenges by creatives saying if you've created it, post it. But before you post it, think about what you want to create so that when you post, it's worth it. Let God lead. Please don't do anything without having foresight of what your spiritual anchoring will be. And then stop waiting to be discovered. Engineer discovery. Again, that is how disruption happens. Create the environment for yourself. Let people even come on your page and be wondering, what's really happening here? What style of art is this? Why does this person create this kind of fashion? What is their essence? Be discoverable. Refuse to be almost there. Again, excellence. Find that voice, stay in that voice, clean it up. If you're not certain now, there's so many different ways to know if what you're doing is excellence. YouTube is one of the greatest universities in the world now. There's other creatives, there's communities of creatives, there's constructive criticism that, people will be honest enough to tell you, oh, I really think you should have done XYZ. And then create oceans together. Don't just sit down as little puddles and little ponds. Create oceans, right? Stop competing for small ponds. It's really crazy how the creative industry has sort of become a space where everybody wants to be seen rather than create influence. And this conversation is about creating influence. Right now, you might have only 400 followers, but think about it in 2035 when a crop of people in your industry sit down to talk. What are they going to say about you? Are they going to say, oh, you are that creative with 400 followers? Or are they going to say, oh, this person influenced me, they made me buy my first camera, they made me want to buy a podcast mic, etc.? And then what do the stats say? I would say there's over 8.2 billion people in the world, and any one of them could see, experience, or be changed by your content. 3+ hours daily is the average time people spend on social media. 98% of people are searching and researching products on social. And podcast growth, guys, right now in the world is at 222%. So, what are you waiting for? With attention captured, how intentional are we with what we're framing? For me, Africa is not just short on attention, right? It's not somewhere you just pass through. Like I said, and I started at the beginning of this conversation, it's rich in opportunities. There's something for someone sitting down somewhere. We must reimagine the way that we churn out stories. We must reimagine the way we tell our stories. And my biggest thing is, why does this disruption need to happen now? Nobody's going to tell your story for you. Nobody is going to remind themselves why you're from a little beautiful community somewhere in southwest Nigeria, or why you are doing materials in a certain kind of batter or dye style because you're preserving history. You are the one that's going to do it. Or else, if someone else tells it for you, they're going to tell it differently. So, disruption is not noise making, it's vision making. You are called to disrupt. So I like to think of this disrupt as to dream, to inspire, to serve, to roots, unleash, and above all, partner and transform. That's how creative will shift nations. That's how creatives will change the course of history. And if you don't remember who you are, right, I'd like to leave you with a scripture. Yes. What would this be if we didn't disruptively put in a message? Isaiah 43, verse 19, it says, "See, I am doing a new thing. It springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." If you think disruption is new, you're joking, my guys. Disruption is an age old system that has really woken us. It has kept us at the edge of our seats. It has moved a lot of communities. It has created a lot of change. But for it to be effective, it has to be a thought provoking process. Keep your vision in mind. Don't just do things amiss. And my prayer is that for all of us who want to be disruptive creatives, when we wake up somewhere along the line, somewhere in the future, we're going to look back and think, this particular podcast affected my life. This particular thing changed me, and I'm happy to have been part of it. So, thank you guys for your time. This has been a really interesting conversation. Um, if you want to find me, obviously on LinkedIn, I am Zaina Ibinabo Tonjo. On Instagram, I'm Zaina.kilali. Follow, like. I'm very passionate about conversations like this. I'm constantly disrupting. I don't intend to stop. And please, I just want to say something. Disruption is something I love so much because with creatives, it is not age bound. If you wake up at 65 and you realize you have a mission in your heart and you have an assignment and it's tied to something you have to do, with that vision in your heart, you will fulfill purpose. Find your anchoring, like I said, find your tribe and run with it. Thank you so much for having me. I don't know if there are questions in the comment section. Let me just quickly check, or if there's anything anyone wants to say. Okay. So I think I'm just going to hand over to the beautiful moderator, Ife. Thank you so much, everyone.
Blown away by now. I don't know what is on your mind, but you should have been blown away by now. Because she said disruption is not noise making, it is vision making. You are called to disrupt. And if you think disruption is new, you are joking. You are joking. Like, oh my God. Even about this has been a really, really exciting, it has been a beautiful session. And I'm sure our minds have been open. I'm very sure our minds are open up to many more possibilities. We now know that we have to put structure and we have to show up excellently in everything we do. So, yes, to the comment section now, I can see that there are some questions. I can see that there are some questions, and I'm just going to be taking one because of our time. And yes, from Wisdom Rave, we can see the question, Ibinabo, how do we learn to see the opportunities for disruption that others who are busy following trends are missing? Because you said disruptors cannot follow trends. So, Ibinabo, what do you have to say about this?
Okay, so I think the question you asked was Wisdom said, how do we operate as disruptors if we don't follow trends? So you're a disruptor, you're supposed to set trends, right? And this is not to say that you do not follow quote and unquote trends, but if anything, you get in there and you find your niche. I kept repeating that. It's so important for you to understand that if you must be the collective, you must be set apart. But if you want to be part of the collective, then you follow through, right? So if you just want to be on a For You page, use the hashtag FYP, hashtag viral, and do content and be seen, that's fine. But when it comes to creating disruptive content, then you must find your own voice. So it's just like the reason why I wanted us to play the video in the beginning was I wanted to tell Rihanna's story, right? She started out in music. Okay, she started out in music. I think we can play the video now, but I'm just going to say it. She started out in music, right? And she went from using music, she did film, she did this, she did that, and then she finally arrived at being a business mogul. So the thing is, purpose will always show you the light. Many a times when you are clouded by the noise, you're not actually paying attention. So my thing is, I usually tell a lot of creatives is don't be afraid to be different, because there is a very thin line between disruption. There's a very close similarity with differentiation and disruption, right? You find that when you do things, people make comments like, "Ah, why are you doing this?" Make sure you're comfortable in your skin, because I won't lie to you guys, disruption comes with a lot of eyes raised, people yimmering at you that what's this one doing? Who's going to listen to your music? Who's going to buy your tape? Imagine if people were telling an endless ocean who's ever going to play your music. Imagine if people were telling Mike Bamiloye and co who's ever going to watch a film based off Christianity. Imagine if Lawrence Oyor listened when they said take off this headband, right? He wouldn't be who he is. So yes, pay attention to the trends, because the best disruptive creatives, right, stay informed, but they don't stay latched to trends. They create their own standards. So I think we're just going to try to play the video now. Let's see if it'll play.
Remembered as being the artist from the Caribbean who came here and made it internationally. Run it back once more. Run, 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 everybody move. Run, let me see you move. Run, rock it to the groove. One shooter. Rihanna.
Robin Rihanna Fenty. Queen of the Night. The 2014 CFJ
Okay, can I be heard? Someone please confirm. I think
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are sorry for that breach, and we will just take Michelle's introduction right now. So, Anti Michelle is a dynamic communication strategist, seasoned event host, and creative business owner with a strong background in computer science and certified expertise as a lead auditor. She currently works as an IT specialist in the oil and gas industry, bringing analytical thinking and digital precision into a broader communications work. In addition to her media and communications pursuits, Mitchell is the founder of a thriving casual fashion clothing brand where she blends creativity with business acumen to deliver stylish, high quality pieces that empower women to look and feel confident in everyday wear. With years of experience in brand storytelling, public speaking, and media presentation, she has become a trusted voice in shaping narratives that resonate and inspire. Mitchell is deeply passionate about women's development and empowerment. This led her to found Dear Woman, You Too Can, an initiative that equips and encourages women to break limitations, embrace their voice, and pursue purpose with boldness. Through this platform, she leads impactful conversations around identity, growth, and influence. As an event organizer, Mitchell has also sat on the core planning teams of major events across the South region of Nigeria, particularly in the art of Port Harcourt, where her reputation for detail, creativity, and leadership continues to shine. Having been opportune to host some of the notable gospel gatherings and high level corporate events, and having shared stages with world renowned speakers, she brings not just a voice, but a presence marked by excellence, clarity, and conviction. She currently leads a growing team of moderators across multiple church branches and facilitates trainings that equips individuals to speak with presence, power, and purpose, both on stage and in life. With joy in our hearts, with deeper sense of joy in our hearts, let us welcome Anti Mitchell George.
Thank you. Hear me. Please confirm that I can be heard. Okay. Um, Thank you very much for the warm welcome. It is such a privilege to be here. Thank you. And to our beautiful speaker, Ibinabo, thank you. That was such an amazing session. That was such an amazing in caps lock. That was such an amazing session. All right, so I always say this, my assignment here is very simple. So the theme for this webinar is redefining the narrative, how creative visionaries are shaping the future. And just before I go into my topic for today, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about the team and on the team. So there's one thing that you need to know, and that is the future is not just built with technology, with innovation, or with policies or by policies. The future is built with words. Yes, I said it. The future is built by voices that can articulate vision, spark movements, and shift culture. Let's think about it. Let's take our minds back. Every revolution, every movement, every shift in culture started with someone raising their voice, right? We can all attest to that fact, right? Yes. So in Nigeria, across Africa, and even globally, currently we have creative visionaries that are telling you stories about their faith, about their identity, about business, about governance and culture. Now, there's one thing that I need you to take home from this session, even if you don't take home anything at all. You need to take home this one thing, which is the fact that every visionary needs a voice. Without your voice, your idea remains private. But with your voice, you have the power to change the world. Which brings me to my topic for today, speaking with impact, using your voice to influence, inspire, and lead. So with all this plenty long talk, I know that the question that is going on in your mind is, what is a voice? So Oxford Learner's Dictionary defines a voice as a sound that is produced by movement of vocal cords used in the pronunciation of vowels and some consonants. But see, I'm here to tell you today that your voice is more than just a sound. It's more than just abokodo. It's more than just a e I, o, u. It's more than just A, B, C, D. Your voice is your signature. Your voice is your personal stamp. It carries not just your story, but your values and your power to influence how people see and respond to you. In summary, your voice is your power to be heard, to connect, and to create change. I'm going to say it again. Your voice is your power to be heard, to connect, and to create change. And so I'm sure you're asking me, why does my voice even matter? Why does my voice matter in shaping the future? Now I'm going to be taking us down memory lane. Okay, history has shown us over time and over the years that voices are not just sounds, they are catalysts. They ignite movements, they stir nations, and they reshape the way that people think. Now, I'm going to be giving us 3 examples of people who have used their voice to shape the future. The first person is Martin Luther King. I have a dream. Yes, his voice carried the weight of a vision so powerful that even decades later, it still inspires people around the world. The second person is a lady that I love so much that made it possible for me to even be here today speaking to you, who is Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, Nigeria's Lioness of Lishabi. Her voice did not just fight for women's rights, it cracked open doors for future generations of Nigerian women to step into leadership. And the third person I'm going to be citing as an example tonight is the famous Fela Anikulapo Kuti, who used a different stage, which is music. His voice echoed not just in lyrics, but in the heartbeat of a movement. Now, there's one thing that you should pick up from everybody here. That power wasn't just in ideas, it was in how they used their voices. So let's bring it over to today. The world is watching Africa rise, not just because of its resources, not just because of oil and gas, not just because of the abundance of resources that we have present in Africa, but for its creativity, our innovation, and our resilience. We have young entrepreneurs, we have young creators like yourself and myself, we have leaders who are redefining Africa's global story. But let me tell you the truth. My idea, your idea, they are not enough. Our ideas alone are not enough. My impact and your impact depends on our ability to communicate our ideas clearly, authentically, and with conviction. So that idea in your head, that idea that you've written down in your book, it is not enough. It's just private. It's just you alone that knows the idea. Maybe you shared it with a couple of people, maybe your mother, your father, your friends, your siblings, maybe people in your church or in your community. But your impact would depend on how you are able to communicate that idea of yours clearly, authentically, and with strong conviction. Here's the thing, a brilliant solution unspoken is a missed opportunity. A powerful story untold is a silent legacy. And a poorly communicated vision risks being forgotten. And one thing that you need to know is that your voice is the bridge between what you can imagine and the change the world experiences. So if you need a change or if you want to experience a change in the world today, you do not need to wait for someone else to come up and speak. Your voice can be that change. Your voice can spark that change. And if history has shown that voices ignite change, then today's reality proves that voices shape the future. So you ask me again, okay, after this long talk, why does my voice matter in redefining narratives? And so I'm just going to be asking us. There's so many things that we do today. There's so many things that we know today. And it is because a certain narrative has been, sold in our mind or told to us. I'm going to be using something that Apostle Femi Lazarus said one time. He said, "You never grew up, knowing the difference between being poor and being rich." That narrative of being poor or that narrative of being rich was told to you as you started growing up. Narratives are powerful. They shape how societies think, act, and respond to change. So you might think that a narrative is just a story. It's not. It's the lens through which you and I interpret reality. And at the heart of every narrative is a voice bold enough to speak it into existence. And I'm going to be using one very popular but sad experience of Nigerians, of Nigerian youths, which is the End SARS campaign. It wasn't just a protest, it wasn't just a campaign. It was a collective voice of young Nigerians demanding dignity, justice, and reform. Yes, we thought, oh, people were just marching the streets, people were just tweeting, people were just making videos. No, it was more than just that. The hashtags, the chants, the tweets, the personal stories on social media, they weren't just noise. They created a narrative that forced both our local and global audience to pay attention. That is the power of a powerful narrative. I'm going to be using another example, which is Afrobeat. We have the likes of you would have to help me now. We have the likes of Burna Boy, Thames, Aria Star. We have, those people. Yes, the beats are infectious. You might move your body from time to time. You might catch yourself, singing aloud in a public transport or, stamping your foot according to the beat. But the thing is, their voices about identity, about culture, and about pride has somehow, some way redefined how the world sees Nigeria and Africa at large. You're going to agree with me on that. So this brings me to the point that you need to understand that your voice is not just your voice. Your voice is not just your personal tool. Your voice is cultural. Because when you speak, you're not just representing yourself. When I speak, I'm not just representing Arthur Michelle George. When you speak, you're not just representing yourself. You contribute to how your family, your community, your country, and even your generation is perceived. So if you're a professional in your field, your voice redefines how people think about excellence in your field. If you're a creator, your voice redefines how the world engages with African creativity. If you're a leader, your voice redefines what leadership looks like for those coming after you. So your voice is not just for you alone. It's not just a personal stamp. It is also a cultural tool. So when you're withholding your voice, you need to know that you're not just being silent for yourself. You are leaving a gap in the cultural story. You're leaving a gap in our cultural story. You need to understand that when you speak, when you raise your voice, when you contribute your voice to a story, to a narrative, to shaping the future, you are not just speaking for yourself. You are not just shaping the future for yourself. You are shaping the future for other generations to come. It changes the way that people would perceive your family. It changes the way that people will perceive your country. It changes the way that people would even perceive your generation to come. And then that leads me to the next point, which is being authentic. Authenticity, the heart of influence. See, you would agree with me. I'm sure that you all will agree with me. There's a lot that is going on social media. We are seeing different posts, different reels. There's an overflow of data. Well, like there's just so much. If you are for people viewing, okay, it's because it's live, you might not see ads. But if you want to go and rewatch this session, believe me, you if 2 or 3 or 4 ads do not play before the end of the session, that means YouTube is either you're on YouTube Premium or something. right? So there's so much noise. We have art, we have created media, social media posts, we have motivational talks, and most of them that don't even connect, we don't even connect with. There are some ads that I'm just waiting for it to finish to just click, skip ad, right? What people crave now, what I crave now, what you crave now is realness. And that's where being authentic comes in. The thing about being authentic is that it builds trust. And the thing about trust is that it is the real currency of influence. I'm going to be telling us a story of a doctor who transitioned from medicine, right? Who transitioned from the medical field to being an entrepreneur, to having a cake brand. His name is Dr. Charles Davis, and he owns Fastest Cakes alongside his wife. Now, he shares his own personal stories. He shares his faith, his failures, his growth. He's very open. If you've attended any of his classes before, you would attest to the fact that it is one of the realest classes that an entrepreneur can find in today's age. I'm not even joking. He's not using a slide to teach you. It's not see the way that we have, presentations like he's not using any of that. He's showing you real data. He show you their back system. He show you everything as you go. He can teach for 10 hours. I'm not even joking. His last two classes was about 9 hours. They started in the morning and finished, I think, in the evening or there about 9 good hours. He is that real. And if you notice the influx of businesses that are paying, what his cheapest class is, if I'm not mistaken, 150,000 naira. Except he wants to do like a general Q&A that he can reduce the amount. But his cheapest class is 150,000 naira, and that's because that's early bird. He prices goes up to as high as 300,000 naira for just one day. It's not reoccurring. It's just one day, and I don't even think he does replays. So if you miss that class, you have missed it, right? But people can pay that amount because he is very authentic. They have seen him share his story. They have seen him talk about his failures. They have seen him talk about how he started his brand from their house, one small kitchen, to building it into 14 branches in 3 different countries. He's a Nigerian. He owns the brand with his wife, which is if you tell somebody, oh, you and your husband can, partner and start a business, the idea are going to look at you like, why do I want to be business partners with my husband? But he has shown this possibility, right? He is authentic to the core. And one of the things that even catches people's attention is he has been able to build his brand from one kitchen in his house to over 14 different branches in 3 different countries, and they're even expanding to more countries without an active investor, which means that they built the brand with money that the brand makes. And people can pay that much for one class because they have seen that this person is true to his story. He's authentic to his story. That is a Nigerian brand that started from one house, from one small kitchen, and expanding to grow to the global stage. That raw honesty of his has become part of his brand. I personally, I do not buy cake from him because they are the best cake brand, like they are the sweetest, they produce the sweetest cakes. One of the major reasons why I buy product from that brand is because I trust the man behind the cake. I can beat my chest that if I buy this cake now, they will deliver it as they ought to. And if for any reason they don't deliver it as they ought to, I can reach out to him or I can reach out to customer care and I would receive a positive feedback. The power of being authentic. It is the heart of being influential. It is the heart of influence. And my next point is storytelling as a narrative power. So I'm going to also be using the same person as an example, or maybe let me use someone different. There are 2 ladies actually that I'll be telling us about. One is Dr. Ufon, and the other person, I call her Auntie Ini Abibola. Now, Dr. Ufon surprisingly graduated with a 3rd class. Of course, it wasn't her fault. We're in Nigeria. The system failed her at some point because she was ill and then she missed a semester. They refused to waive that semester that she missed, so that was an automatic carryover for her. So, anyways, all in all, she graduated with a third class from school. Law, if I'm not mistaken, she read law, a third class. But few months ago, she was invited to speak, if I have this information clear, at Stanford University. Someone who graduated with a third class was invited. She did not go and apply. They invited her, they sent her the invitation. And from her telling that story, I'm sure that there are one or two or three or even more, students who are on their pathway of having a second class lower or a third class that had received hope that this was not their end or this is not the end. That's the power of storytelling. She has changed the narrative by just telling her story of how she graduated with a third class and this is where she is today. If you go to her page, you will read the proper story. I'm just giving you a brief. And then the second person that I mentioned is Auntie Ini Abimbola. She was a very, or I beg your pardon, she is still a very brilliant woman. But her father was a watch repairer. And she struggled to get by. She even had a scholarship to study, if I'm not mistaken, abroad. But they did not have money to even snap passports. And that's how she missed that opportunity to study abroad. She didn't study abroad anymore. She did not go. She did not. She couldn't. They couldn't afford to take passports. Transportation safe, they could not afford it. It's now to go and study. I'm sure she wants to reach abroad. But here she is standing today. A very powerful woman, sitting on the board of companies. I was in a conference where she was sharing her story. And I just sat there and I was like, these are the kind of stories that women need to hear. Surprisingly, she has divorced her husband that, just married her due to, the circumstances surrounding her family and all that. And she divorced and then she's happily remarried now. Power of storytelling. So we live in an age of information overload. Facts are everywhere. Data is everywhere. You go online, you see one thing. But here's the truth. Facts only inform, but stories transform. Every story you tell has the ability and possibility to transform the next person's life. Stories cut through noise. They cut through the noise. They make information human. They enable people to see themselves in you. I'm sure that in that conference that day when Atini was sharing her story, she had people who were either battling a divorce or who were about to, begin the divorce process, but were quite skeptical because they did not really think that there was anything left outside of that marriage for them. They did not really think that they would see someone else that they would they'll remarry, they'll see someone else that, they would remarry that would take them in, probably take their children in if they have any. But from her just sharing that story, she changed their view of life. She changed their narrative behind life. So they turn cold data and give it warmth, give it emotion, and give it memory. If we want to do an experiment, you will find out that we remember stories long after we have even forgotten data and statistics. In the year 2009, one thing happened. I bet you would barely remember the year, but we'll remember the one thing that happened. That is the power of telling stories. So when you tell a story, you're not just sharing information, you are inviting people into your world. And even more powerful, you are helping them see themselves in your own journey. Stories have the power to redefine narratives. So when if you're thinking, is my story even worth, is it even worth sharing? I'm here to tell you today that your story is worth sharing. Your voice is worth being heard because it has the power to redefine narratives. It has the power to change, that narrative that is going around the world. It has the power to shape the future. I'm going to give us very, relatable examples. women, for example, before, in the days of old, right? The major narrative about women is that women are just caregivers. Their own is just to clean the home, probably help their husband out, take care of the children, take care of the home, and the likes and the likes and the likes. But now we are seeing that women are now becoming global leaders. So the example of Dr. Ufon and Auntie Amy, they did not just share their achievements on global stages. They did not just share their achievements on social media. They told stories of resilience, of leadership, and of breaking barriers. How do you explain someone who graduated with a third class being invited by one of the biggest universities in the world to give a speech? How do you explain someone whose father was a watch repairer, having multiple degrees, now sitting on the board of big companies and organizations? Those stories, those narratives have shifted or have the ability to shift how women in leadership are seen, not just in Nigeria, but globally. Now we have transitioned from women just being caregivers to women being global leaders. We have transitioned from Nigerians are just corrupt to Nigerians are creative, Nigerians are innovators, Nigerians are global game changers. You have to share your story. You're thinking, should I really share it? Is it worthy? Is it worth sharing? It is. Your story is worth sharing. Your voice is worth being heard. Now, we're going to go fully into our topic for today, which is using your voice to influence, inspire, and to lead. So, when we talk about using your voice with impact, we are not just, talking about sounding as good as I sound or sounding as confident as I sound, right? We are talking about what your voice produces in people. A truly impactful voice goes beyond the noise. It carries influence, it carries inspiration, and it carries leadership. So let's go. What is influence? So influence is just in a nutshell, influence is the ability to make people lean into you. Right? And the thing about influence is it is just the starting point. It is the moment when your voice makes people to pause, pay attention, and lean in. It is built on two pillars. The first being clarity, and the second being credibility. So clarity, you're communicating, people can understand your communication, you're communicating simply and directly, you're not using, big things or words that would get people lost. In fact, there was a post that I saw on social media, and someone, if you see the English that the person spoke, even I myself was wondering if it was the same post that I saw, the person was commenting, right? And somebody said, Ogansi, you have not passed any information as far as I'm concerned, because you've lost all of us here. So it is your ability to communicate simply and directly. You're not causing any confusion with the English that you're throwing around. People can understand whatever it is that you're communicating. And credibility, people listen to voices that they trust. And that trust comes from consistency, competence, and being authentic. Again, consistency, competence, and being authentic. Trust me, the number of people that would trust a voice that goes off and on would be very less, would be minimal compared to the number of people that would trust a voice that is consistent. You're always speaking, you're always giving out value, you're always changing the narrative, you're always sharing your story. And the second one is inspire. In summary, inspiring is to make people light up. You know how you have a heart, and then you have a light in the middle. And inspiration goes beyond just listening. I mean, I listened to our beautiful speaker, Ibinabo, and you are listening to me now speak. Inspiration goes beyond just listening. In our way, it awakens something inside people. So if I'm talking to you now, and you are just listening to me, nothing, no light is shining in you, nothing is awakening in you, it means that I'm not inspiring you enough. I'm not inspiring you enough to share your story. I'm not inspiring you enough to, change that narrative or to share your own views or to share your own narrative. Inspiration creates belief. And inspiration is powered by two things. The first being passion, and the second being vision. Passion is when you speak from your heart. You can see I'm speaking passionately to you people. When you speak from your heart and your conviction is contagious, that is passion. Vision is, inspiration always points to a bigger picture. And that bigger picture is the vision. Something beyond today. Something worth striving for. Something that guides you. And leadership, to lead, is to make people move, is to make people act, is to get them on their feet, to get them to do. Leadership is the highest level of speaking impact. So we have influence, we have inspire, and then we have leadership. Leadership is the highest level of speaking impact. Influence will make people hear you. Inspiration will make them believe you. But you see, leadership, it is what moves them into action. And it is about two things. The first being direction, and the second being empowerment. Direction is giving clarity on what to do next, whereas empowerment is helping people see that they can do it. So the flow of impact is influence, which makes them to listen. And then we have inspire, inspiration, which makes people to believe. And then we have leadership, which makes people to move, to act, to do. One thing you need to know is a voice that stops at only influence, problem there. A voice that stops at only influence just entertains. A voice that goes further into inspiration would uplift. Yeah, light will shine, people's spirits will be uplifted, people's hearts will be uplifted. But a voice that leads, that is a voice that has the power to change the world. So you have to ask yourself, am I influencing? Am I inspiring? And am I leading? I beg you, do not stop at just influencing. Move it to inspiring and move it to leading people. Shaping the future with your voice. Let's talk. Like I mentioned earlier, when I was giving us a brief introduction about the theme for this webinar series, culture does not shift by accident. You see how we had Mary Slessor come to stop the killing of twins. Culture does not shift by accident. It shifts when people dare to speak differently. Example, Mary Slessor. She lent her voice. She spoke. Every major movement, every reformation, every revolution, every global cultural wave, every new perception of Africa has been fueled not just by creativity, but by voices that have amplified creativity. Let's use Nigeria as an example. Nollywood. What's that popular movie that came out, the series, the one that Kemi Adetiba produced, King of Boys? What's the other one? Are you guys will have to help me now? It changes the way that people see things. It changes the way that people view Africa. It has changed the way that people are viewing Nigeria. I watched the movie, I'm like, we can have like the plot twist was plotting. I'm like, hey, it was unlike every normal Nigerian movie that you can predict. In fact, from the title, you can predict the beginning and the end of the movie. You can predict the beginning and the end of the movie. But for every new Nigerian movie or film that comes out now, you will notice that the picture quality, the video quality, the camera quality, their makeup, their wardrobe, their sound, everything is clear, is crisp. We're not there yet, but we are making consistent progress. And why is that? It's because people dared to raise their voice, because people dared to amplify that creativity. We have Afrobeats. We have tech entrepreneurs that are raising funds globally, millions of dollars. How did you think it started? It started with people who weren't afraid to use their voice to tell new stories. I'm sure some 10, 15 years ago, if someone had told, another person that was planning on starting up something in tech, that it would be possible to gain or to, to have funds or investors, to have investors, give you millions of dollars, I'm sure that person would have been skeptical. How? Bella asks, how now? From Nigeria to where are you going to? Where are we going to? Where are we coming from? How did you even reach there to even meet these people in the first place? But what we now know and what we now see as a possibility is because there were people who were not afraid to speak up. There were people who were not afraid to raise their voices. There were people who were not afraid to tell new stories. These people didn't just rise through creativity. They rose because voices amplified their vision to the world. As I'm going to be asking us 3 questions today. Where are you silent where your voice could create change? Where are you silent where your voice could create change? What story are you telling about yourself, about your faith, about your identity, about your business, or your community? How can you being authentic, how can your authenticity reshape narratives in your sphere? These are questions that you should ponder on after this session. Where are you silent where your voice could create change? What story are you telling about your identity, about your faith, about yourself, about your business or your community? How can your authenticity reshape narratives in your sphere? Africa is stepping into the global stage. How we speak out about our business, how we speak about our country, how we speak about our nation, how we speak about our continent, how we speak about our arts, our innovations, it matters. Creative visionaries are not only just making things, they are not just innovating, they are not just creating, they are telling stories that have the ability and capability to shift perspectives. Again, I ask, what story are you telling? How are you lending your voice? How? Your voice is as important as your work. Your voice is as important as your idea. There are so many people who are so good at what they do, but we will never know them. We will never hear about them. Why? Because they did not dare to speak. Because they did not dare to raise their voice. Because they did not dare to share their story. You can be brilliant. You can be a genius. You can be very intelligent. You can be talented. You can be innovative. But if you don't speak, if you don't share it, if you don't tell it, how would the world know? If you don't speak about what you do, if you don't speak about how much excellence you give out in what you do, if you don't share your story, if you don't lend your voice to changing that narrative, if you don't lend your voice to that thing, to that culture, to that vision, the world may never know. And sadly, the world may never even get to hear about you. Your voice carries power. Your voice has the ability to challenge stereotypes. Your voice has the ability to inspire. Your voice has the ability to mobilize communities. Your voice has the ability to create legacies. Your voice, my voice, it has that ability. It carries that much power. And the world may never hear you if you don't speak. Trust me, I cannot speak up for you. I might not even be able to do a perfect job, even if I decide to speak up for you. But you see, you, with your authenticity, with your wealth of knowledge, with your own story, no one will be able to speak up. No one will be able to share your story. No one will be able to share your views like you, like yourself. So, in conclusion, I want you to know that your voice is more than just words. It's more than just MNOPQRST. It's more than just ABCD. It's more than just A, E, or U. It's not about the volume of your voice. Your voice is about value. It's about influence. It's about branding. It's about the legacy. You do not need to be a celebrity. You do not need to be a CEO, chief executive officer, CEO of one thing, one thing, one thing. You do not need to be a pastor. You do not need to be a public speaker. You don't need to have free English. Like, you don't need to speak free English the way I'm speaking this night. To speak, to be a person of impact, or to be able to speak with impact. Every conversation that you have at work, on the streets, on the road, online, with your neighbor, at home, everywhere, and any conversation that you have, and every conversation that you have is an opportunity to influence. It's an opportunity to inspire. It's an opportunity to lead. I'm going to be ending my session with this question. How are you lending your voice? Is it to inspire? Is it to lead? Is it to influence? Or would you rather just keep quiet? Thank you. Over to you guys at the studio.
Oh my God, it's been such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful session we've had tonight. You have a story and you should tell your story creatively because you have influence. So, guys, it has been such a beautiful time. And Ty Mitchell, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing what story does. Thank you so much for sharing that which leadership doesn't stop at. That influence is not just the main thing. So thank you so much for choosing to speak the truth to us tonight. Thank you for helping us see. Thank you for this and many more to come. Thank you so much to you, our MVPs that stayed till this time. My God, it shows you want to learn. It shows you want to break the narrative. It shows you want to redefine the narrative. So here's what to do next after this. What was that which you picked from this? What did you learn? What were the things that blew your mind? What are those things, actionable steps you're going to be putting into practice? We want you to share them on your social media and tag Ambience TV or even use it on Instagram and spread the word because more is coming. We are redefining the narrative together. And then, yes, it doesn't just stop here. We have another webinar coming. You want to be there. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, for staying till this time. Oh my God, I wish I could give everyone hugs right now. But you stayed till this time and you learned and you are going to be practicing. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Binabo. Thank you, Michelle. It was so nice having you here. Let's ensure to have a great night's rest and a lovely Sunday service tomorrow. Bye bye.